Hi guys. A lot of the time we hear even seasoned Inventor users say, "Oh, I never knew you could do that." And this happens to us ourselves. So I thought, with most of what's written online focusing on new features and the latest and greatest technologies, I thought for this series I'd sort of just go back a little bit and cover some of the things that are very useful in Inventor but that you may not have seen before. Back to basics, if you will. So I'm just going to start off. I've got this assembly with a couple of parts in them, and for argument's sake, let's say we want to constrain something halfway between those two. Now we could put a constraint on these two with a dimension, and we could halve that dimension to control something in the middle. But a quick and easy way is if you create a work plane and just click on the first face and then the second face, that'll put another work plane in between the two. Now you'll notice that as I move the second part, the other one remains in the center. Now you can keep doing that, so you might want another one between that work plane and that one, and you'll notice that they maintain their relationship. So that's a quick and easy way to control the position of something. Now say we actually want to put something on that center work plane, and for argument's sake, let's make an O-ring that's going to fit in that edge of that box. So rather than take dimensions from this box and create a new part from scratch and then create that O-ring geometry to match, we'll do a derived workflow. So I'm going to create a new part, and instead of starting to create the geometry from scratch, I'm going to go to the Manage tab and click on Derive, click the part that I want to use, and when I bring it in, I'm just going to bring it in as a surface. So this doesn't add any volume or sorry, it doesn't add any mass to the assembly, but it's given me some geometry that I can work with. So I can create a work plane on that face. I'm then going to project in the cut edges. And a trick I like to use here is always to turn the projected geometry into construction. Then if I need to create geometry, I draw it in sketch geometry, non-construction lines. And that means that I don't get the downstream errors where if you try and break a line or constrain a line that's projected geometry, you get the error that says you can't constrain projected geometry or reference geometry. So by marking all my reference geometry as construction, it just helps to keep that clear later. So now I'm just going to offset a center line between those two. I'll draw in a line there, and I'll constrain that line to the middle of the. So basically that O-ring center line is in the center of the face. You can finish the sketch there. Now, to actually make the solid geometry, I'm going to use a sweep, and to create the sweep you always have to have a sketch on a work plane that intersects that path. So a quick way to do it in this case is to once again click the work plane, click the point that you want to start with, and then click the line normal to the work plane that you want. So that's just a quick way to get a work plane intersecting, and then I can draw my sketch on there and create my O-ring. We're probably going to have to project in the center point of that line, and now we can constrain that, and now we've got what we need for our sweep. So we can sweep that along that path. Now because we've used the derived workflow, that part there will stay proportionate or stay adaptive to the original geometry. So what you'll notice is if I go and change my original sketch, turn that into a square box, and then go back to my O-ring and update it, the O-ring changes to suit because it's using that derived geometry to create its own geometry. So we can now take that and put it into our assembly, use some of the same work planes to constrain it in place. We'll do the same thing in that plane. And now all that's left to do is to constrain it to the work plane that we want it to sit on. So now as we move the parts away from each other, the O-ring stays in the middle and in the center as well. Now we could go on and use that derived workflow again to create other components if necessary. In hindsight, what I probably should have done is put the sketch into the box half and use that to create the groove, and then derive that same sketch into the actual O-ring itself. And then that way, whenever we change the box, the groove and the O-ring are going to stay matching. I'll turn my work planes off.